I failed 37 times in RimWorld Vanilla Factions Expanded Empire. Originally, this video was going to be a classic 100 days in VFE Empire, before my lack of skills caused my faction to get obliterated only 1 year in. You see, this mod introduces a new storyteller called Ariadne Archduchess, a highly refined social psychopath who ties raids directly to colony wealth in a big way. Specifically, she sends raids every time your colony wealth jumps by 5,000. While I originally thought that this was going to be a minor threat compared to my usual 500% Randy random playthroughs, I quickly learned that I was wrong. So very, very wrong. So without further ado, let's all laugh at my hilarious skill issues. Immediately as we drop in, you'll notice that we drop in with approximately 60,000 charge rifles. This is because I messed up the custom scenario in the editor. I had to go into dev mode to nuke all but one of the charge rifles. I should have just restarted here and taken the hint. My second big failure was base placement. You see, I am playing with Dub's Rim Atomics, which meant I wanted to locate myself somewhat close to a body of shallow water. Unfortunately, the position I chose was very far away from most of the steam geysers, which are, in my opinion, the best early to mid-game power source. 20 minutes later, and I have begun expanding my cave base. I'm having Spartak dig into the mountain a little bit now to make room for some of his production facilities and eventual mech buildings. Unfortunately, I commit to my third failure. Here I built an electric cutting table. The big issue here is that I didn't need all that much stone, so the extra speed of the power table really wasn't needed. It also ate up about 400 watts, which was fairly large for this early in the game. My first free recruit was this pawn named Trista. She is actually pretty good, with passions in shooting, melee, and intellectual, while also having a high crafting stat. Her only drawbacks were nudist and her paralytic abasia. Instead of capturing her and converting her while her paralysis wore off, I decided to simply leave her in bed as a colonist. Bad idea. The first raider we get is Chainus. She is a fairly decent pawn, with good passions in animals, social, and mining. Her lazy trait really stinks, but I figure she could be a good moral guide for our ideology. I down her and immediately realize I haven't built a prison. Great job, me. I realize at this point I don't have any heal root growing and I am cruising through my medical supplies at a fast rate. This despite the fact that I have an agrihand and fertile soil growing tons of rice close by. This will definitely not come back to bite me. Beginning my trend of wealth management failings, I designate this large chunk of steel to be mined for my future freezer. Not only does this delay my freezer because steel takes forever to mine, but it also spikes my colony wealth even more. My next mistake was a doozy. I took too long building a paste dispenser, leading to Spartak getting food poisoning, one of the most annoying sickness types. I waited to build it because I wanted it in the freezer, which is dumb because I could have just moved the dispenser there once I finished the freezer. Another hilarious failure caused by my lack of knowledge in biotech. I accept a toxic dump request for an ageless gene pack. Not only is this stupid because the gene pack would eventually deteriorate, but also because it raised my colony wealth despite being totally worthless for at least a few years in game. Next up, I place my kill corridor right in front of my base entrance and don't build an L shape to stop this from being used as cover by raiders. This is a very stupid mistake for someone with hundreds of hours in RimWorld. Beginning a masterclass in the review of skill issues, we get a Manhunter pack of Tox Rats. Despite this being one of the easiest and, quite frankly, the most beneficial manhunting packs, I immediately send Spartak outside to move the door so I can access the freezer while we lock ourselves inside. This is especially stupid as I could have simply built a door directly from the freezer into the workshop. This starts a chain of events that kills the colony. Because Spartak gets attacked while moving the door, he is unable to seal off the base again, leading to the Tox Rats invading and absolutely murking the base. We re-enter the game right as the tox rats arrive. I make sure to keep both my colonists inside this time, and after a few minutes they pass. Now we can get back to the fails. Even though I have had many waster colonists at this point in the game, I always forget they have a psychite dependency. By the time I realize this, Chenos has already begun getting close to a comatose state. I designated a huge grow zone for cotton here, excited to start trying to make better recreational furniture and clothing for my colonists. I figure I should plant as much as I can since growing plants doesn't need much labor. This continues the trend of me ignoring my colony wealth. I started walling my rooms with nice walls to improve my colonists' moods. Not only is this more expensive than normal walls, they also really spike colony wealth despite not giving much benefit at this point. We get our first big raid here from a group of Edekins, and the flaws in my defenses start to begin showing now that real threats have emerged. This failure is related to fail 10. I didn't build a barricade at the end of the kill corridor, so now raiders are using the wall ends as cover. Great. The raiders start bashing my turbines here, costing me valuable components that I can't replace and causing huge power issues. I should have walled these off somehow, or just built my base closer to the steam geysers. The lightning round begins with my complete inability to hunt Muffalo. I let Trista get way too close to the Muffalo she is hunting, meaning when one finally goes manhunter on her, she doesn't have time to take it down before it gets to her. Now, even with the previous mistake, Trista is still faster than the now wounded Muffalo and could have easily outrun it. Instead, I have her begin firing on it, again hoping I can down it. She doesn't have time to take aim before the Muffalo is upon her. Now realizing I need to go save Trista and kill the Muffalo attacking my Constructoids, I send Spartak out. Unfortunately, his Militor Romulus can't keep up with him because I forgot to repair him and he is now missing a leg. Spartak will now fight alone. Instead of using Romulus to kite the Muffalo with his fairly powerful shotgun, I instead opt to have him 1v1 the Muffalo in melee. This is stupid because Muffalos are tough in melee and Militors are weak in melee. While the Muffalo continues his path of destruction, I stupidly send Spartak way too close to it once it enters the base. As soon as it loses aggro on the Clean Sweeper, it turns to Spartak, who can no longer run away from the Muffalo. Romulus pays for my mistake with his life. We get a transpod crash next. Despite it saying relationship, I don't realize immediately that she is Spartak's daughter. Even though she has decent stats, I initially decided to let her die before reading closer and realizing that I almost made Spartak have guaranteed mental breaks for a year because his daughter died. Thankfully, I got to her in time. I begin to realize at this point I am having crippling power issues. I've spent a lot of wasted research time on solar panels when toxifier generators really are just so much better. I switched my research to focusing on it, but it's too late. I finally received the Sanguiphage quest, and instead of accepting immediately, I decide to wait until my colony is no longer consumed by the plague. I then proceed to forget about it and miss the quest. You'll see here I set up a crafting bill for dusters for my colonists, and because I don't force Trista to craft them, she never does, meaning my pawns have little protection in the future. This will become relevant. My colonists begin to become upset with me because they have no ideology room or moral guide. I really should have gotten this done sooner. I'm able to survive an Impid raid next, and instead of burning their corpses and clothing to reduce my wealth, I stupidly strip them and take their stuff, leading to ever-increasing map wealth. Our next big event is a ship battle, which gives us 2 reasonably good pawns. Unfortunately, my prison is too small to fit them, so I simply rescue them. When they finally recover, they have very differing ideologies and become quickly unhappy. I should have imprisoned them. We are blessed with a man-hunting warg pack next. Bob the Builder is working outside and is too slow to reach the base in time. Poor Bob. In likely the most hilarious oversight yet, I did not realize the door to my base was forced open. The wargs begin pouring into the base and cause huge amounts of chaos while my colonists deal with them. Unbelievably, I don't suffer any casualties or infections from this blunder. Bone is arrested so I can convert him and has a mental break in prison. It is at this point I begin realizing I have way too many prisoners and really should have been more selective in my recruitment efforts. With the arrival of my first deserter raid, I begin to become more aware of my increasing colony wealth. Fortunately, we are able to easily tag team the deserter and take their very good stuff. While the deserter is really a quite good pawn, I should have executed her, as another prisoner is really not what I need. With the arrival of this mech breacher raid, we finally witness the culmination of all my failures. This is the last day of the colony. I was not prepared for this raid and probably should have just ran. As the breachers move towards my base, paving over everything in their way, I miss the most valuable time to engage them. You see, breachers will always prioritize moving to the colony walls to breach them. This gives your colony time to attack them as they move towards the base. The final mistake I make that truly seals the death warrants of my colonists is bunching them up while they engage the mechs. This guarantees every errant breacher shell will absolutely shred all of my colonists at once. Spartak is the last to fall, taken out by a headshot from a lancer.